I'd love to hear a little bit about your songwriting process. Does it kind of start with hooks and words, or is it
For the most
melodic?
part, for the most part, it starts with an idea, like the title or a hook.
Hmm.
You know, I have a I have a title page. Anytime I come an idea page, anytime I come up with something, I'll write it down. So when you get together with a co-writer, we'll talk for a while, and then it's like, all right, well, let's throw some titles around and see what works.
Hmm.
And so it's usually from that list we're both. And when somebody says something, a title that catches my attention, it can happen a couple of different ways, like the writing this, but a lot of times the idea, the actual lyric, whatever the idea is, once you pick up your guitar, it kind of comes with a musical idea, at least for me. Um, so I think it starts from a lyrical place, but the lyric itself in my head seems to kind of inform musically what it's going to be.
Okay, so you basically you're hearing a title or a lyric, and then
Yeah,
you're kind of adding the cadence to it after that.
yeah. And I don't usually start a song like it's a stream of consciousness kind of thing, or start writing a verse and hey, we'll see where it leads and and we'll figure it out. It's usually let's have the idea first. I mean, a lot of it, I think the longest part of the day, once you know what you want to write, what's title you agree you want, is the talking about it.
Yeah,
And then when the actual writing starts, after doing it for 30 years, most days it kind of comes kind of quick.
yeah.
It's like the longest part is talking it out. A lot of, when I have a lot of steady co-writers, I feel comfortable, talking
Yeah,
with,
and that trust has got to be important too, I imagine,
yeah.
right? On both sides of that.
Yeah,
Um,
well, and that's what I tell a lot of people. You really do have to learn to trust your co-writer. If you're in the room with somebody, apparently you respect them enough of what it is that they do, so you got to trust them and
mhm,
don't think you're always right. Because I
yeah.
think if I spew out something and if I think it sounds great, and the people that I'm in the room with trusting, it's not as great as you think it is.
Yeah, you have to trust them to tell you that it sucks,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
At times. I mean, you
or at
can't.
least it's not right yet. I
Right.
mean,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And that's why co-writing is important, right? It lets you kind of travel outside of your own circle, so to speak, right?
Yeah, hopefully you're riding with somebody who kind of picks up whatever it is you're deficient in.
Exactly.
I mean, or um, and I've been lucky. I've had some steady co-writers I've been writing with for over 20 years now. We just really mesh really well
Mhm.
together. It's funny, I've had setups along the way with great writers I love, but I didn't know very well personally. And we get in a room together and nothing would happen. It's like you never know, call it chemistry or whatever, but
Yeah.
you never know if two writers are going to mesh.
Are you able to kind of self-identify what you're deficient in and then take that knowledge and seek out the people that you know aren't deficient in that?
Yeah, if I had to say one thing, it would probably for modern country music, where melody really matters a lot more than I give it credit for. If anything, I think melody is my weak point.
Uh-huh.
So I'm always, I always say, hey man, don't let me start it because I'm just going to make it sound like an old bluegrass song.
So how
Like,
much maturation did you need to get to that point?
um, I think in the last 5 years, I'm realizing that hey, something, maybe maybe lay my guitar. Don't pick your guitar up first thing and don't be the driving force musically because I'm still wanting to rewrite songs from the 70s and the
Of,
60s
of
that I
course.
loved and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
These guys that I'm with have a really good grip on more modern melody writing. So, and again, it comes with trusting them and knowing who they are.
And so one thing I love about you too is there's a lot of songwriters out there that are either, very, very successful as a solo writer and they don't let anybody in, right? There's a lot of folks like that. And then there's a lot of other folks that just don't go anywhere as a solo writer, but are great, great writers when they're in the room with someone else. You
And I
have had
do, I do.
success in both of those.
Well, no, well, yeah, but I mean, I consider myself a co-writer more than a writer, but I try to challenge myself to turn in one song a month that I wrote by myself, that I write by myself,
Yeah.
and one of them right now is on hold for somebody that I'm really excited about because if that would get cut, a song I wrote by myself, that would just for lack of a better word, that would be my you know, just make me feel, yeah, okay, I'm a songwriter.
Yeah. Well, I
Validation. That's the word I was
so
looking
I
for.
think it's great that you're 38 years in Nashville at this point. This is your 38th year, and you still don't consider yourself a songwriter. And with all of the success that you've had, and
Well, I
that's,
mean,
believe me, that's a good thing, because that means you're not resting. You're still chasing the carrot, so to speak. You know.
I still know I got to. I still know I mean, as lucky I've been, real world has been pretty defining,
Yeah.
and I'm proud of that, and I'm really proud of that. But I still think there's something else that I got to offer, and every day I try to find it.
Yeah, and when that's not there anymore, that's when it's time to hang them up. You know what I mean?
I'm 65, and last year the publishing company I was writing for shut down. It was really dramatic. It was really sudden. Nobody knew it was coming, and I didn't know for a second. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my wife, she asked me if I wanted to retire. And when I heard that word retire, it's like, retire from what?
Yeah.
From playing the guitar, from trying to write a great song. So once I thought of that, articulated it like that, I went out and got another publishing deal.
Yeah.
I was lucky. I called up Robin, and like one thing led to another.
That's great stuff, man. You have a lot of. I feel like you're one of those people that should have a lot of insight over the changes of Nashville over the course of time. And man, Nashville is one of those beasts that is always evolving, right? And so you've been there since the late '80s. Like I said, 38 years. How do you think Nashville has changed as somebody who's been in that scene for so long, from then until now?
As far as
Just
the business side
business,
of things,
music related. How have the songs changed?
well, business wise, it seemed like back then everybody wanted to everybody was rooting for everybody. And back then you could take a song to an A&R person at a record label, and if they didn't hear the song for one of their acts on their label, they would bring it to another one. Hey, this might be great for one of you guys. I don't think that happens anymore. I think like little loops have kind of shut in, and everybody's kind of in their own little world, and it's so hard to get something happening. Instead of trying to bring people in, they're trying to keep people out. Is what it feels. Is what it feels like the business in a lot of ways has become.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean to, when I say that out loud, oh, that sounds really bad. But I mean,
No, it's
it
true
just makes
though. It's true, and I think
it's true. It just makes you work really harder. And that's what I said before. I mean, I think a big part of it is finding your people. And like
yep.
I'm at SMAC now, and the people there are just like so open and so supportive of everybody. I'm in a really lucky spot to
And
keep.
I think what we talked about earlier about the oversaturation of the market has a real big impact on what you're talking about, because like when you bring a song now to an A&R person, they're going to keep that song in their pocketbook. They don't want anybody else to see it. They
Right.
don't want you to play it live. They don't want you to experiment it on crowds. Like, no, I'm keeping this just in case it's something I want to use for one of our acts. And so, like, sharing the song with another artist is going to cost somebody their job, possibly, nowadays.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You
And I'm
know?
not saying this with cynicism either, but like a publisher, if a lot of time now, a publisher kind of has become, instead of a guy who's trying to help you get your songs recorded, they've kind of become your team of, like,
Yeah.
if you're an artist, to find people for you to write with and find you a producer. But a lot of times, I think if a publisher signs artist A, and he has a couple of friends that he's been writing with, before he got signed, a lot of times the publisher is going to sign his friend too,
Yeah.
even if they're not up to par with another writer who's looking for a deal. And again, that's just business. They want to own a bigger piece of the song that
Mm-hmm.
artist A is going to be recording.
Well, back in the
They
day,
don't
how
want,
often did you, when you had your own publishing deal, how often were you writing with, like, co-writing with people that were signed to somebody else? Was that happening?
yeah, oh yeah, and
Yeah.
that still as a songwriter, we call it a lunchbox writer, as one of
Yep.
the guys who comes in Monday through Friday at
Right.
9, 10 o'clock to write a song. We're writing with writers from different publishing companies,
Yeah.
but I know publishers are signing. I don't want. How do I say this without sounding? They're signing lesser. I believe a lot of lesser writers are being signed because of their acclamation to a particular artist, as opposed to their skill as a songwriter.
I love that. Yeah. That's courageous to say that because it is true.
It seems
And
to be happening a little bit, I
yeah.
mean, it's not the only thing that's happening, but it seems to happen.
Well, and I mean, people are comfortable with certain people too, whether they're more talented or not. I mean, venues are like that too, right? Like they'll hire a less talented artist, just because they're comfortable with that artist.
Or they might own a bigger piece of that artist,
Yeah,
And again, I'm saying I understand it's a business
it's a
first,
business, right? Yep.
but like, I know there's a lot of great songwriters out there on the streets who don't have a publishing deal right now just because there's not a spot available for them.
Yeah, exactly right. Another avenue that songs end up in, obviously, is film and TV. And you've had some success there as well. Gwyneth Paltrow has cut one of your songs for Country Strong. Tell us how this happened.
Well, I mean, that was one thing I was writing at, where was I writing? At BMG. And like, so that was a pretty big company. So all the bigger companies, BMG, Sony, Warner Chappell, they all have, departments in the film industry. So everybody got a copy of the script for this movie, Country Strong, and we were all asked to write songs for the movie. So we got to read the script, just to know what it was about.
Yeah,
And but I don't think ours in particular. I think somebody we just had that song that she ended up recording that we wrote even before all that, and my publisher at the time just pitched it to the producer, and he thought it would be great for her concert scene.
yeah. That's gonna be surreal, right? Like I'm just sitting here talking to you for the first time, and all this stuff that's happened to you, man. Like
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
back at it, it's pretty cool, right?
it's pretty cool. Yeah, and what's really cool, not only getting to see Gwyneth Paltrow record it and perform it, you could still YouTube it.
Yep.
It's out there. But what's his name? Who's the guy who played Spider Man? The young Tobey Maguire.
Tobey
He
Maguire,
was
yeah.
he was a producer on the movie.
Okay.
So when it premiered here in Nashville, I got to meet him and take a picture with him, and like we put it up on our computer screen. And my kids were young then, and they were really kind of blown away that I had a picture with Peter Parker.
That's funny. I wanted to talk about your kids. I missed out on it on the Taylor Swift segment that we were talking about earlier. But you tell a great story about
Yeah,
one of
it's a
your
true
daughters.
story.
Yeah, tell that story for us about the
Well,
Taylor Swift cut.
well, at the time of that song, my daughter was about 12 years old, and like every other 12-year-old girl was listening to Taylor Swift back then. And
Hmm.
so it took about 6 months from the time like we were told she's going to sing to the time she got in the studio. It was about 6 months. And I knew most things fall through. So I never really mentioned it to my daughter. But the day I got the call that Taylor sang her part, I ran home, ran up the stairs, knocked on her door, and I stood there like, Rosie, you're not going to believe this, but Taylor Swift sang on one of my songs today. And she just looked at me, and I don't know what made her say it, but she said, Daddy, you couldn't get Demi Lovato?
That's
The
great
true
stuff.
story. I tell that the people the people in the listening room of the Bluebird Cafe must be sick of that story because I tell it every time before I play the song because it still blows my mind.
So I doubt very much anybody at the Bluebird is sick of a song story. First of all, I mean that's kind of what the
Well,
Bluebird is known for.
thankfully, it's always a new audience.
That's right. It's a great story, and a great story should be told, no matter how many
I still,
times.
I still give her shit about
No, she should get shit for it, by God. But at the same time, her dad should be still chasing that Demi Lovato cut.
it. Well, I'm hungry. Yeah, just sign me up.
Exactly right. Last thing I want to talk about before we get into our more fun segments is mentoring and kind of helping younger songwriters. You mentioned earlier that you had those mentors and people that were helping you along the way when you came to Nashville. So, having read about you, having heard some of your interviews over the years, I also know how important it is to you to mentor and pass it forward, so to speak, to younger folks than you. I want to hear you talk a little bit about that and how much time you spend, really focusing on that and why it's important to you.
Well, time wise, there's high tide and low tide as far as getting involved, but I've met over the year, well, especially I'd say again, probably since the pandemic or maybe a little bit before, but I've met some young folks who are so passionately in love with country music in particular, and I mean classic country music. A lot of these young writers, you brought up Highway, but a lot of these young guys, they know, like, I mean, besides here in the real world, they want to talk about another song I had recorded by Alan Jackson called "A Little Bit Bluer Than That." It
Hmm.
was on his Drive CD,
Yep.
and it's pretty country. And I mean, the number of young songwriters who've come up to me about that song, I keep asking my wife, "Are we sure this wasn't a hit?" Because a lot of people know that song, and it's just really inspiring to me. Like I'm one case in particular. I started going down to St. Augustine to play the St. Augustine Songwriters Festival, and I met a young local guy there, a songwriter named Davis Luce. At the time I met him, he was probably 18,
Hmm.
but his love for music and his knowledge of music, of the same music that I loved, we felt like, I mean, it felt like I was talking to a kindred spirit, like in the first 5 minutes. And I just wanted to like embrace this guy and say, hey, anything I can do, I want to make your ride to Nashville, your ride as a songwriter as easy as possible. I remember on a TV show, I heard someone say, I'm a fountain, drink of me. And I just wanted, I guess it's, I don't want to see him make some mistakes that I might have made along the way,
Hmm.
you know. So when I get a kid like him, or there's a couple of others now that I talk to, and their love of songwriting and country music songwriting in general, to me, it's so real. It's inspiring, and I don't know. It makes me feel I want to spend more of my time with these kids because they're so passionate than some of my peers who are some of my best friends, dearest friends, but maybe not the passion quite isn't there like it used to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not jaded, but just a little bit tired. And these kids, their passion for the music makes me I feel like one of them
I
a
mean, it
lot.
keeps it fresh, right? Keeps it fresh for you.
It keeps it fresh and it keeps that fire lit.
Yeah.
Anytime
Yep.
that fire feels like it's about to go out. I mean, today I wrote with a young guy. His name is Braden Jameson. He's an artist. He's a great young country artist, and he released a song that we wrote a couple of months back, and we wrote one today. And it's just a great country song. And I know and it's for him, hopefully to record at some point. And I know I wouldn't have written that song if I got together with another veteran songwriter like myself, sitting down trying to write the next Morgan Wallen hit or the
Yeah.
next, you know what I mean? We would
Yeah.
have we would have been a little bit more calculating, but this thing came from such an organic place of just wanting a certain particular kind of country song. And it was just so much fun. And I just loved what we came up with. So, I know I realize because the older veteran and I'm talking to some of these younger writers, it might appear like a mentor mentee kind of situation, but it's really like I'm feeling like they're my peers
Yeah.
because they keep me excited and feeling passionate about it.
Yeah. And that's a validation point for them. I hope you know that.
Well, thanks,
Yeah.
thanks, and
It,
they're pretty they're pretty quick to say it too. They're very sweet and very respectful. But I mean, I'm not doing it to blow my ego. I'm doing it because
I
you
understand.
know
Yeah.
it's where I feel like I belong.
It's necessary because if it hadn't happened for you, you wouldn't have been able to do it for others. So,
And I'm glad I have that connection with some folks. And then, and I'm meeting people every day. I'm having coffee with young writers every other day. Letting them ask whatever questions they might have.
mhm,
But I have a couple of other friends also, hit songwriters. Two guys in particular, a guy named Marty Dodson and Clay Mills.
love them.
They are teachers.
Yep.
They have the soul
Songtown
of
USA for the folks out
yeah,
there. Yep.
Songtown.
Yep.
And and I occasionally I'll do something for them, but I don't feel like I have the soul of a teacher like they do. I'm
Right.
just a music lover as much as some of these other people that I deal with.